So, welcome back to the Figmentation podcast. We're a nonprofit. We work with kids that have experienced trauma. We help them find their inner hero by making them the star of their own movie.
Hi, I'm Charlie. I make movies.
Hi, Charlie. Welcome to the podcast. You drove a long way to get here.
I did. If you count from Salt Lake to St. George a long way, I do not.
It's a ways. It's a what, 4.5 hour drive?
4 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not too bad, but and the weather's been really lousy lately. There's been a lot of snow in Utah this year.
I was supposed to do this podcast last week, and you had 2 feet of snow. However, this week, I had 2 feet of snow, and you don't.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that weird?
Yep.
The high deserts are so weird when it comes to water. So, Charlie is our editor. He edited Scorpiation for us and voluntarily all the way through that movie so that we could prove the good that Figmentation does for kids and for their families. And tell us a little bit about why you wanted to step on board with Figmentation.
Originally, I was asked to direct Scorpiation, but there was a schedule conflict, and I just couldn't. There was too many work obligations. I couldn't come to St. George for a week. It was a lot of things that I just couldn't juggle at the same time. Mm-hmm. What I saw was an opportunity when they had a director in Colin Cunningham come aboard, is that I can work remotely from Salt Lake and provide a service to St. George. So I didn't have to be there in person.
Right.
I could do it, in my free time. And so I said, I want to be a part of this. I want to do anything that I can. Well, the most available thing for me was, I got to be the one to edit this. Because I started thinking about other people, and I said, I don't know if I want anybody else to edit this because they might mess it up.
Yeah.
See,
You had a vision.
They could do it, and I hadn't seen any footage at all. I hadn't seen anything yet, but I was like.
But you'd read the script because I sent it to you a couple of times.
Yeah, and I knew what the movie was going to be, and I was like, I have a feeling that I'm the one that can edit this movie, and I can edit this movie the way it needs to be seen. Mm-hmm. I can put it together, and this is how it should be seen. Working with Austin as the DP and working with Colin as the director, it was really kind of that team effort to figure out what is it going to be.
Right.
And what we finally landed on.
And still keep the kids' vision alive.
Right. We're not making The Dark Knight.
We're making Alex's movie, and Alex is an audience of one.
Yeah,
we got to impress Alex.
And I think other editors, I can't say names because I don't know anybody, but I've experienced other people that have sat down to make movies, and they've gone into editing, and they said, I'm going to do Christopher Nolan. I'm going to make The Dark Knight. Mm-hmm. Well, they did not shoot The Dark Knight, so it's not going to be that.
Yeah.
I feel that the best way to make a movie is to look at what you have. And see what you have, and that's what the movie is. You let the movie kind of tell you what it wants to be.
Oh, so Michelangelo then.
It sounds very pretentious, I know.
No, it's actually, it makes sense to me. Based on some of the hobbies that I've take on, I actually understand that. Sometimes if you just go with the flow of what the art wants to be, it comes to life so much smoother.
It does, and you can almost tell by watching footage what it wants to be. Yeah. And as a musician, when I watch a scene, I can almost rhythmically feel where a cut should happen. It's like, okay, I'm watching the dialogue, they're saying the line in this cadence, and cut.
Yeah.
And cut. It's all about feeling that moment, and some people, they have a very mathematical approach to it. They sit down and go, my shots last 3 seconds and that's it, and they just cut in that environment. I don't recommend it, but that's how some people work, and they make terrific things, and those people have gone on to win countless awards, and whatever works for you is the best approach.
Yeah.
What works for me is just feeling the scene, seeing what it wants to be, and cutting it on that rhythm.
Yeah.
And cutting it on that rhythm. I think for me, I get very bored quickly. Mm-hmm. And for me to have an affinity for long movies, it's very crucial that the cadence,
that it stays
consistent. It has hills and valleys. Some scenes are slower than others. Some scenes are faster. And then timing music to the score, to the scene, finding the proper music, finding the music that carries the tone of the movie, because music is so important.
So important.
You know, if you
it's the whole emotional baseline.
If you put Barney over, you know, Friday the 13th, it's.
I think I want to see that remix because I think I'd laugh.
It's great. You know, your film was written 3 times. It's written when you write it physically on paper.
Right.
It's written when you shot it as a director, and then it's written again when you should put it together in the edit. You know, in every movie, I guarantee you, the paper version of it, the shot version of it, and the edited version of it are all different.
Yeah.
And they never look the same.
Well, they have to evolve into what they're going to become. Yeah.
Because it goes back to telling you, the movie tells you what it wants to be. You know, working with a really, really collaborative group of people, you're able to make something that is as special as Scorpiation.
Yeah. Being behind the scenes, it's a different sort of feeling. I don't like being on camera. The first couple of these, my heart rate would be, I was surprised the microphone didn't pick it up, because I'm like 140 beats a minute when my anxiety goes, and I get all like red and flushed.
Whatever stage fright I had to go away. If you're in the drum line, kind of like self-aware, everybody's going to notice. Which is interesting, because it kind of connects to Figmentation. Mm-hmm. Because if you put a drum on and you're with a group of people that are all doing the same kind of thing, it removes you from like the insecurities of yourself, which is kind of neat. Because if like the moment the drum came off, I was like a different person. It's like I put it on, serious.
It's enclosed cognition. Mm-hmm. So when you put on, you basically you added something to your human affect, right? So that you became that thing that you were wearing. So it's putting on the uniform, putting on a cowboy hat, picking up a lightsaber, all kind of has the same effect.
It's like I'm a terrible actor if I am doing it myself. Uh-huh. Like if I'm just playing myself, I'm awful. I'm aware of the camera. I'm aware of the people I'm talking to. Can't do it. Put me in makeup and wardrobe, and for some reason, I just pretend I'm something else.
You step into the role.
I step into the role.
Have you ever been to a Comic-Con?
Yeah, but I don't dress up at Comic-Con.
Oh, you're missing out.
I know. People say that all the time, but for me, Comic-Con is more like it's my environment. It's my people of like, I'm less of the anime crowd and more of like the comic books and movies and art. Like I met Rod Serling's daughter at a Comic-Con, and I feel like that exchange with her would have been different if I wasn't myself. Because I was like, I had to be myself. I had to go there and just say, look, the Twilight Zone is like one of my favorite things on the planet. I don't think there's episodes I dislike. Uh-huh. And here I am talking to his daughter, but for me it was such a just a kind of surreal moment.
Mm-hmm. The costume you were wearing to Comic-Con that year was Charlie's the Filmmaker. Uh-huh. So that's what I'm going to go as. That's what I'm going to do while I'm here, as opposed to going in a costume to express that other geekery, right? I use that as the nicest possible term because I'm totally a geek. So, that's interesting. Okay, I can understand that. We do a lot of Comic-Cons as a family. Like, so Ryan, the helmet that you see behind you is my little brother wore that one, and then my other little brother wore that one, and that little brother wore that one. We like Comic-Cons and costumes because it's fun, because you put on the costume and you become somebody else while you're at the Comic-Con, and that's who you are. I think that's why people, when they're at Comic-Cons, we talk to the security when we're up there all the time, and they'll tell you there's no fights. Everybody's different. Everybody's got a different political view, religious view, just ideological views. No fights, because everybody's coming in costume, and that's who they are while they're there. It's an interesting way to kind of level off your brain and just see people kind of as what they hide underneath instead of all of the boxes that they put themselves in. So I think that's fascinating. Tell me why, when you heard about Figmentation, why did you want to help us?
I first found out about Figmentation at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
I actually found at Salt Lake Comic-Con the booth for Figmentation.
Yeah.
And Dan, Falks, and Austin Shadowwald were there. Mm-hmm. And I was just walking through, and they're like, hey, we know that guy. Mm-hmm. And I go, I know you. I can't remember your name, but I know you. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what's this? What are you guys doing here? Oh, it's a charity, and they explained it very crudely. It's a
Yeah, we were still trying to get the message clarity. It was a little bit harder to build.
Oh, it's like it's a charity. They make costumes and turn kids into superheroes, and I go, cool, and I walked away.
Mm-hmm.
Never to see them again. And so I walked away, and I didn't think about it for a while. And then I had this movie that I was talking to people about making because I kept going to film festivals, and I was tired of going to film festivals and not having a movie and telling people I'm a filmmaker, but having them kind of go, sure, champ, you're a filmmaker. And I'm like, no, seriously, I've made 2 documentaries. I was in the Navy. So I was building this movie because I was tired of making the movies with, friends, and I wanted to make something bigger. I want to make a big short film. I had money and I had time, and I was like, what can I do? And so I made this. I wrote this Western script and started reaching out to people online. Who anybody want to produce it? I can't produce it. If I wear too many hats, I'll lose my mind and I'll go crazy.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Or I already had my wardrobe guy. My good friend Jonah, who I have known since a film I made right before I went to the Navy.
Right.
Disappeared from my life. Ran into him at a friend's house. Asked him how he's doing. He was working at the theater. Wants to get into props and wardrobe. And I said, let's make a movie together. Went to a concert. Dude dressed like Wyatt Earp to a concert for like a jam band music.
Yeah, I like him.
It's great. And he had the mustache. Like, you're expecting him to look and say, I'm your Huckleberry.
Yeah.
Like, I look at him dead in the face and I go, let's make a Western movie. Let's make it with you. You can do all the wardrobe. So he's doing all the wardrobe, and so we have all the wardrobe getting figured out. And I go, I need a makeup artist because the person I usually go to is unavailable.
Yeah.
So I go to the filmmaking community and I go, I need a makeup artist. And Adam Mast goes, he tags Jeremy Bird.
Yeah.
And then he's like, Jeremy Bird can do it. And she's like, I mean, I can. And I have no idea who Jeremy is.
Who this is, yeah.
Like, I'm looking at this like, Jeremy. And I don't like meeting new people, especially over the internet. I'd rather meet you face to face because then I can like get a feel for who you are as a person. But then I like exchanging a text. So I'm like, I don't have anybody else. And Jeremy says she can do it. So I reach out to Jeremy and I send her this really lengthy, incredibly formal Facebook message. It's got proper punctuation. I am so terrified.
Copy editing his own
messages. I'm so
messages.
terrified of who this person is because I'm like, I don't know what to expect. I want to make this text like as professional and as foolproof, so there's no like because I Facebook stalked. So
yeah.
I did. I was like, okay, who's the person I'm messaging?
I already knew that because he wrote the novel. So the novel came after checking you out first.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, who's this person? And then I see all this like cool art and I see all this stuff and it's like, this person's very established.
Yeah.
Let me send this very formal message to this very established person who's probably got no time for me. I don't have a budget to pay them. I just need a favor. And I get the most kind-hearted, well, send me the script and we'll talk about it response ever. It's like, oh, okay, that's the kind of person I'm okay. I can lay back a little bit. Still very uptight, still very formal because I haven't met this person. Yeah. And then we get to set and I'm introducing myself to everybody, talking about makeup and what I want, and I sent all this like paperwork and saying, no, this is kind of what I want. I wanted to make it as detail oriented as possible because I was so terrified.
I saw all of that. I was kind of proud.
I was so terrified of questions that I was like, I want to make it so nobody has a question that I don't have an answer to. Yeah. And then of course what happens is they always have questions you don't have answers to.
Right. Absolutely. Things you didn't think about.
And so first day of filming goes off great. Like it was so like quick and dirty, and we only filmed one scene because that's how I planned it. It was a half day. Just because I wanted everybody to relax the first day. Yeah. So we'll take a half day. we'll all relax. We'll get to know each other because it's my first film working with people that I've never worked with before.
Yeah.
I've never worked with a sound guy before. I've never worked with a producer before, like a producer that made feature films
Right.
by himself. I've never worked with another person as a director of photography with Caleb Hatton. I'd never worked with a wardrobe guy. I never had a dedicated makeup person. I never had dedicated anybody's.
I don't think anybody else up there knew that though.
And I told them.
Yeah, but I don't think I don't think that the experience made them think that about you. Cuz I got nothing but good reviews of that whole event.
Well, that makes me really happy. And I think part of it is because, like, out of fear, I over-prepare. And because it's like I overstress and over-prepare, and I want to make sure that it's like everything looks as clean-cut, professional as it can be.
Why do you think you do that?
Why? Well, the reason I think I do that is part of the reason why I'm getting into the Figmentation thing.
Yeah.
It's on the second day of shooting, where like we have this big effect, where in the movie where somebody gets hurt, and we're just being children, and we have a lot of time, and we start talking with Jeremy and her husband Rick, and it's in that conversation that she goes, "Well, I run a nonprofit foundation," and I go, "Oh, really? What do you do?" And she goes, "Oh, it's Figmentation," and it's like, "Oh, that's you." The people that I ran into at the Comic-Con? Like,
that was our launch. We didn't know what the heck we were doing when we launched that weekend.
It's like, I remember the sticker on the side of the car, but I was like, that's just coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't think anything of it, and it finally clicked. I was like, oh, that's you.
Mm-hmm.
And we started talking more about Figmentation, and Jeremy explained it like light years better.
Oh, yeah.
Than Dan and Austin did. And I think because, like you were saying, you were starting up, and I don't think Dan and Austin knew what to say either.
Yeah, no. Actually, Comic-Con was teaching us a lot about how to present the idea so that people didn't misunderstand it. And that was clarifying that was really difficult because it's kind of complex, and people want to whittle it down to its most simplest features. And there's so much psychology to it that it's really hard to whittle it down. So it's always hard for people to explain it, but that's understandable.
Hearing it that way, and I realized what the cause was, I immediately like I have this thing where my mind's going even when I'm talking to like other people.
I don't know anything about that.
It's I can hear a million conversations simultaneously, and yet somehow I have to stay focused on what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I hear about underprivileged, abused kids. Things that kids that are experiencing like traumatic events in their lives.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm all 3 or 4 of those things.
So, Charlie, tell me a little bit about what got you into filmmaking to begin with.
That's such a really long conversation. Mm-hmm. So I'll try to like summarize it. For the most part, there was this thing that like clicked in me. My dad took me to go see movies a lot as a kid. We would go see a Harry Potter movie, or we'd go see a blockbuster like Transformers or something that kind of drew a lot of audiences,
Mm-hmm.
So for me, like that kind of like moment in life where you become sentient.
Yeah, right.
It's like where you just kind of are suddenly aware of all of the things around you. Happened to me in a movie theater.
Do you remember the movie?
It was May of 2002, and I was in Missoula, Montana, visiting my grandfather at the time, and it was the big theater in town, so it was way nicer than anything we had in my hometown. And my dad took us to go see Lord of the Rings.
Ooh.
So
okay.
And it was the bigger theater in that town, which means it was smaller compared to most towns.
Mm-hmm.
But and this is 5 months after the movie came out. But for me, it was like it was a new movie.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know what it was. And I'm in this movie theater. I think I'm just shy of 5 years old.
Okay.
4 or 5 years old. I can't remember. See if
You were little.
I was little. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the theater and I'm watching this, and I'm just enamored with what I'm watching.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen anything like this. Yeah, I'd seen dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, and I'd seen all these like cool things like from Disney, but I'd never seen something where I just felt like I had gone somewhere else for 3 hours.
Right.
I didn't fall asleep. I didn't
totally focused.
tune out. I just looked at that screen deadpan. I was like, this is
Yeah.
But Fellowship was the first time when I was like, this is the coolest thing I have ever seen in my life.
I think a lot of people agree with that on that movie.
It's my favorite movie to this day.
Yeah, and New Zealand's on your list.
And New Zealand is on my list.
Yep.
It was actually supposed to be the first country I wanted to go to after I got out of the Navy. And then, the world ended for 3 years. So I was like, well, that's not going to happen.
Yep, it's going to be later.
It's going to be later. And it was kind of in that movie theater that it clicked in my head. I was like, somebody had to make this. I don't know why I thought of that, but I thought of it like in probably arts and crafts or something. I think it was because kids at school were pretending to make a movie. By the time I was in like 3rd grade, I had seen all the Lord of the Rings films, and I just was I just loved movies. I was constantly going to movies with my dad. There was, whatever turmoil was going on in my family, like the movies were the one escape. Elementary school recess rolls around and kids start playing. We're making a movie. First thing that clicked in my head is, well, somebody's got to make the movie. Somebody's got to be the director. I don't know what a director does. Yells action. Sure. I had one of these like stencils. There's like a ruler and had like alphabets in it, and you could like trace the numbers.
Yeah.
And I thought it was like the coolest thing ever. So I started drawing movie credits in my notebooks. So I would dedicate whole pages. I'd be like, directed by Charlie Amstone.
So you made movies in pretend until it became what you did in real life.
Yeah, and I continuously made movies in my head. I love listening to stories, and I love telling stories.
Right.
So I would start drawing pictures of like the books that we were listening to in class or reading in class, and be like, oh, what if it was a movie? It would look like this. My mind operates in pictures.
So you visualize the storyline.
Yeah.
As opposed to words.
Yeah, exactly. So I visualize it.
I find a lot of artists think in pictures and 3 dimensions, and I find that they have a hard time articulating to the people around them what they see in their head.
Yes. So on the playground, my like 4th grade year, my friend Justice and I we had this idea in our head. We're remaking Doom.
Okay.
With this $20 camera that recorded.
Hey, you got to start somewhere.
And then I changed schools. There's a lot of stuff going on in my family, a lot of like turmoil and a lot of kind of bad stuff. And I ended up going to another school, and I left all my friends.
Yeah.
So I tried to like make new friends at this new school and like express to these people. It's like, because I'm like, no, I'm an artist. I like to draw. I like to write and tell stories. I like to pretend, that we're making a movie. And unfortunately at that school, it was like a totally different world. They did not care. You might as well have hit me in the head with a book and said, sit down and study. Yeah. So I got into a lot of trouble. Like I had awareness of a kid, but like I had dreams of an adult.
I think you probably grew up a little bit faster than some kids do.
I think so. So I made credit sequences out of like text animations in PowerPoint, thinking I was like, people are going to see this. They're going to be like, whoa, he's making things. He's making movies.
How old were you?
Barely 12. Of course, not the reaction I got, because I was still getting in trouble in school a lot. So we were like, we're going to make a parody. We had found the way we can record audio too. We took this Guitar Hero microphone from Rock Band.
Oh my gosh.
And because we were like, USB. What else has a USB? Can we make it plug into the computer? It worked.
Yeah.
We didn't think it would, so we buried the mic under the couch cushion to hide it so you didn't see the mic. And we're just filming the whole movie from this computer. I played the ghost, and I'm like wearing khaki shorts and like a tie-dye shirt under this clearly not white sheet. I'm the ghost, but you can see the ghost.
I need to see this.
It's awful. I have it though. I saved it.
Oh, it's not awful. You have to look at it from a parental perspective. That's the cutest stuff you've ever seen, is when they try to pull off stuff like that.
And then I just run in as the ghost with the curtain or with the sheet over me at like 13 years old. And I just start messing with the lampshade, throwing stuff at them, and
kids are adorable. I have a video that I just found of my 9-year-old and my 7-year-old, and my 9-year-old apparently thought that she was going to be a YouTuber, and she was starting a sis versus bro YouTube channel as far as she was concerned. And man, I tell you what, that kid cheats at hide and seek. And as a YouTube video, it's okay. It's not high quality, but it's the cutest thing to see my little kids doing this stuff for themselves. Because you get to see the way their little brains work. Because it's something they did for themselves, not something that someone structured for them. That's kind of what Figmentation is. It's all about, we're just going to help you make the movie that you want to make, right? You get to be whatever you want to be, and we'll put the costume on you, and we'll get the camera guys going, and we're going to make that movie that you wish you could make as a kid. We're going to make that real.
Unfortunately for me and my brother and sister, our family wasn't very supportive of the fact that we were doing this. It was a nuisance. We were wrecking the house. So we got like chastised a lot. We were criticized and disciplined. But our reaction to that, you know, some kids would react and they put their face down and they do, well, I guess they're not making that no more.
Yeah.
I'm hard-headed.
A little bit.
Because I'd already gotten in trouble in school so many times that I was like, well, the school didn't tell me what to do. So I don't care if this guy gave birth to me, like.
That sounds determined.
Yeah.
That's a little bit different than being hard-headed.
So we said, we're going to make stuff anyway.
Yeah.
The way I started to realize I could make movies is when Lord of the Rings came out on DVD, I discovered at like 7 or 8 the behind the scenes. Because it clicked in my head that somebody had to make them. Right. And then I was like, movies on this disc. What are these other discs in the box? Like, why are there 3 other discs that I don't...
Kind of hoping for more movie, and there's not more movie, but there's some cool stuff.
There's cool stuff there. And I was like, what's this? Click, and it's like these documentaries from National Geographic and Discovery Channel and like the History Channel. And it's just these behind-the-scenes things for making Lord of the Rings. And I go, that's the guy. That's the guy who made the movie.
Yeah.
You know, like, he has a face. He has a name. I knew his name by that point. Yeah. And I was like, Peter Jackson. That's what he looks like.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Uh-huh.
And because, you know, but by the time I was 6, my parents were divorced. My dad struggles with autism and very much wasn't the, like, light year single father that he could have been. You know,
didn't have the tools he needed.
Yeah. And so you know, I grew up in a very tough environment where, you know, discipline was really heavy. I never really like connected with kids, so I always felt like I was really alone.
Yeah.
And like through life, I always felt like I was by myself, so I sought sanctuary in movies. I sought sanctuary in telling stories, because I figured if I can't win them with my personality, because my personality, albeit is very weird to a lot of people.
That's okay.
You know, I grew up in Utah. I grew up in Utah as a non-LDS person.
Yeah.
And when you're in elementary school as a non-LDS kid, you're weird.
Yeah. Well, kids have a hard time relating to you because they need something that they can connect with.
Exactly. Yeah. So not only it's like I'm a kid of a non-LDS family. My parents got divorced. I have a single father who is, you know, towing the line between, you know, too hard on discipline and too soft on emotion. And it's I was the redheaded stepchild of any classroom I went into.
Yeah. So
my outlet was, well, if I can tell stories and make things, they'll like me for what I make.
Yeah. Childhood trauma.
Yeah. I was not...
Is it safe to say you relate then to our kids?
I relate to those kids because, you know, I at one point was that person that felt alienated and alone and separated from everybody. You know, and whether or not every time I made something, somebody was generous with their words, you know? Yeah. Most of the times I would make stuff and human nature is to react out of jealousy. So... I could have made the Mona Lisa and somebody would have tore me down for it.
So what you're telling me is that the Charlie that I know today exists because of grit. Yeah. Because of absolute determination to just be the storyteller that you always were.
Yep. I'm completely self-taught as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
Like 100% self-taught. Like even though I work in the industry now, I taught myself everything to the point where I went on a set as a PA. People question if this was actually my first shoot or if I was lying.
Really? Well, listen, I've seen Scorpiation, and the comment that I get the most often is how incredibly professionally put together it is. Constantly get that comment. So
Looks like a real
you took Figmentation, and listen, we were determined to make Figmentation one way or the other. When we couldn't get cameras and we couldn't get crew, we were going to come out with our phones and we were going to figure it out one way or the other, and we would have probably made your version of Paranormal Activity in the process, because we didn't know how to edit or sound design or anything. And so it was we needed people like you that had that ability. So I understand exactly where you're coming from and how you built yourself up out of nothing. And that's why I'm so stinking proud of you, kid. I am. I've seen how you can take just bare bones and turn it into something phenomenal. And so we were always super, super grateful for your help. And really honored to have you.
Well, don't give me too much credit for the movie, because I mean, you had an amazing group of talented individuals.
We did.
And I just edited the movie. And the editing skills that I gained to be able to edit that was all self-taught.
Mm-hmm.
It was from all the short films that I made, the 2 documentaries I made in the Navy, watching YouTube videos and learning how can I make this better.
Right.
To where I sit down with an industry established person like Colin Cunningham, and who knows how editors work, who knows how people are, and I can almost fool him to the point where I'm sitting here like, this guy doesn't know that this is my first time editing somebody else's movie.
Yeah, he on several occasions mentioned that he thinks you're amazing. He couldn't understand how you could do so many different things.
And the whole time on side, I'm screaming, don't let him know that this is the first time you've edited somebody else's work.
Yeah.
Because I've only edited my own stuff.
Yeah.
I've told people how to fix their stuff, and I've showed them, okay, in order to make this work better, you should have done this. But, here I am with footage that I've never seen before. I was not on set shooting it.
Right.
I was looking at it
You're
all.
working remotely.
I'm working remotely over Discord, screen share,
Mm-hmm.
just so he can work out of, southern Utah, and I'm in northern Utah. And somehow, some way, we made this movie come together because, I was don't let him know.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to know. And then he never really did until later. I told him in the process, you realize it's my first time working with people, and he was like, I don't care, you're a pro.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. That was the end of the conversation. I said, well, as long as he says I'm a pro, then I think I can
I'm okay.
I can have the confidence to really carry on.
You spent a lot of hours on Scorpiation for Alex.
Yes, I did. Because we started editing early August, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then we edited about 7 days in August completely. And these are 12, 13-hour days.
Yeah.
And then I had some various shoots coming up because it coincidentally, right around the time I get Scorpiation, my life changes forever, and I'm working in the film industry.
Mm-hmm.
My dream is coming true. I'm a production assistant, but I'm just on a movie set. So I made it as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I start working full time in the film industry, and I'm making this movie. But then I also have another full-time job in aviation. And I'm trying to juggle these 3 things. 7 days out of August, I'm with Colin, 12, 13-hour days. We're meeting before I go to work for 4 to 6 hours. And I'm working graveyard shifts from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. And then I wake up in the morning at I would say 10 in the morning, and I would edit with Colin from 10 to 4. And it would just be this repeat cycle through September and October. And then it got to a point where I was just I'm starting a new job. I'm taking a break. I'm exhausted. I'm spent. And it worked perfectly because Colin had to go do a movie with Kevin Costner, and we took a little bit of a break for about 2 weeks. And then it kicked right back up again. And we were going and going and going, revising and grinding. And so I think I worked tirelessly on Scorpiation, and on top of my other projects, because in between Scorpiation, I was working full-time in the film industry, working a full-time job in aviation, and shooting 2 other movies of my own at the same time, and writing a film. I say this, and I have no idea, having lived through it, how I did it.
I'm not sure how you did it.
Because I don't, and because it's here's Icarian that I'm still editing. I'm editing Scorpiation. I'm making a guerrilla short. I'm making another short film. and the Christmas time is coming.
Yeah.
And I realize
you did all of that by volunteer.
all of that by volunteer.
Yeah.
Well, it's because I care about making things so much.
Yeah.
And there's a part of me that looks at like somebody like Alex, and I say, I don't want to give somebody like Alex anything less than what I can put out.
Yeah.
Like the best of my ability is what he's going to get. I don't know this kid. I've never met him. To this day, I have never met Alex. But I gave him everything that I possibly could, because at his age, if I saw Scorpiation, I would think it's the coolest thing. Mm-hmm. And I had to remind myself of me being 12 and put myself and say, if I had made like this, if I had seen what I made with Scorpiation at 12 years old,
if you'd gotten to be that kid,
I wouldn't believe it.
Yeah.
You know, if I had gotten to be that, I'd be like, what
kind of impact would that have made on you at 12?
I think it would have put me in a different position where I felt like I was heard, like I was seen, like for the first time in my life, I could sit there and I could look at somebody else in the world and they go, that's you. And I go, yeah, that's me. Mm-hmm. You know, because a lot of times, like, and this happens to kids and people who go through traumatic events, is the world kind of acknowledges that, yeah, you went through a traumatic event, but because they don't understand what it's like to be there, they can't empathize with you, and their reaction isn't purposely cold. It's just because they don't understand.
Yeah.
I don't understand, like, how could that be a problem for you? You know, it's like other kids. It's like, my parents got divorced, no problem. And it's like, there's a whole other thing that goes along with it.
Right.
You know, there's the personal experience, the individual times, like when you have CPS that threatens to take your parents away. Not every kid goes through a divorce, has police at their door every day, has CPS involved, has grandparents taking you away for a month.
Yeah,
like,
there's definitely different levels of trauma involved in those kinds of things. Yeah.
And it's not, and the thing that I've tried to explain to people is like, look, trauma is not universal.
No.
The way I handle a problem, the way, like, I can work a full-time job in the film industry, work a full-time job, you know, in aviation, work on Scorpiation, work on 2 other projects of my own, and write a movie, is not, like, that is, like, tiring for me, but it would completely kill somebody else. Yeah. There's no way they could do it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm better than somebody than doing that. There's things that I struggle with that I think other people do so well. I struggle to relate to people immediately. I'm a very problem solution oriented person.
Yeah.
Where some people want to just be heard. You know, and I get that. As a person who wants to be heard, the way I solved that was problem solution. So when people just want to be heard and they want to, like, vent to me, I'm like, well, here's what you need to do to solve the problem. And some people don't want to solve the problem. They just want to get it off because they already know what they need to do. They just need to let it out.
Yep.
You know,
some of us are verbal processors. I process out loud. I don't necessarily need you to fix it for me. It's just sort of like reading a book out loud to yourself when you just are like, for the life of you, can't figure out what that word is. So you just read the word over and over again until you figure it out.
Yeah.
You read it out loud. It's kind of the way some of our brains work. For me, I have to process out loud. So half the time I just make my husband sit there and listen to me. I don't need you to fix it. Trust me, I can solve it. I just need you to listen to me so that I can process it, because I can't process it internally all the time. So yeah, you'll find different people. Brains are very different. I have 4 kids, and every one of their brains is a completely different brain. You'd think there wouldn't be that much variety in the same genetic gene pool, but there is.
Well, I look how different my brother and my sister are from me. And what I remind myself constantly is they're their own people with their own life experiences, who have their own goals in life.
Right.
You know, they have their own passions, their own dreams. You know, because I think humans inherently get a little tunnel visioned, and they can only see the world as they know it, and everybody else tends to be like a character in their story.
Yeah, I call them NPCs.
Yeah.
Yeah, very rarely do you have somebody who connects with the people around them, and they're not just NPCs in their story. They're just video game characters that you have a backstory, but they've assigned it to you. That's not really your backstory. They think you are something that you maybe aren't.
And I'm a storyteller. My whole thing is like telling stories that empathize and connect with other people.
Yeah.
You know, the way I sit there and I connect with a movie when I see, you know, Jack Black playing a film director in King Kong, when I see all these people in Lord of the Rings that came together, it's like I see individual people.
Yeah.
And I don't want to lose that part of me. So the way I keep that part of me around is by constantly telling stories that connect. Because my goal in life is that if I can tell a story and put it on a screen, and a 9-year-old kid and his dad can have the same experience watching a story that I've told as the same experience that I had with King Kong, then I did everything that I wanted to do.
For you, it's about the experience.
Yeah.
It's not about the equipment or the competition, or it's about the experience. The impact.
It's the impact that whatever the story has on people. And it's like, I don't make every movie for every person, because I know there is never a point when you're going to win everybody over. And I think that if there's a movie that everybody likes, nobody likes it.
Right. Yeah. So when you made Scorpiation, we've talked about this before, but you said that you were making it for Alex, for the way you thought Alex wanted it based off of the way he wrote his story. And you really were. When we brought in the pickup shots and you got to see Alex a month after he'd had his first Figmentation experience, tell me what you thought of that.
You know, it's the most insane thing, because I'm watching the dailies and the takes that we got for the initial edit, and I'm assembling this movie, and he looks like a child. Like I'm making a movie for a child.
Right.
And I'm just cutting this, and it's like, okay, he's a kid. If I was his age, what would I want? You know, what's the kind of thing? You know, what would I think is cool at 12, but what is also cool for an adult? So I tried to like balance between like what I think is cool now and what I would have thought was cool then. So I'm making the movie, and I'm like, oh, it'd be cool if this happened, and if we use this sound effect with this like music, because I'm all about that experience.
Right.
And so I get to a point where I'm like, we don't have the footage for this. And Colin goes, we ran out of time. We got to go back and shoot it.
Yeah.
I go, okay. Well, we'll go shoot it. When they come back with this footage, and I'm looking at these new takes and this coverage, and it's no longer this kid. It's like I watch him grow up over the course of the movie, and you see the beginning of the movie, and you see a kid.
Those shots are only 3 weeks apart.
You see a kid.
Yeah.
And then you see the end of the movie, and he takes the helmet off, and he reveals himself to Megatropus, and it's just like, that's not the same guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not the same guy. What happened?
Yeah. Well, the Figmentation happened. His mom said that he'd started making friends again, and he'd stopped kind of hiding behind his diagnosis. He carried himself different, didn't he?
Yeah.
In that shot, he was standing up straighter, and he was a whole different kid.
He walked in with like a brooding force. It's like he, in that moment, was his version of Tony Stark.
Yeah. He was Scorpiation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that upright prowess where it's like shoulders back, you know, great posture, you know, and he takes the helmet off and says, you're on the wrong path, but there's still a chance to like do better. And you see that in the movie, and it goes to the end scene, which has a completely different impact.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, it's a 22-minute film, but it's like you go on this whole journey. Like, it's an emotional arc.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it really did happen to him.
Yeah.
It really did happen to him. We might have made it into a kid's pretend movie about being a Tony Stark sort of character, where he, you know, wanted to be this super genius because he didn't really think that he was smart enough. And by the end of that, he was telling me, I'm smart enough. I'm tough enough. I can do this. Because it really did impact him that way. And you get to see it in the film, because you get to see the way it changed him. Just 3 weeks of letting it set in before we got that last shot. And he's a whole different human.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's like, from Scorpiation, you know, for all the trials and tribulations that I had making Scorpiation, you know, I learned kind of the value of things that I wanted to do and the goals that I had for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of my experiences on Scorpiation and doing all this stuff that I actually left aviation as a career altogether. And I said, you know what, I'm going to make movies.
Yeah.
You know, this is what I wanted to do since I was a little kid. This is what I'm going to do forever.
Yeah.
You know, there is no plan B for me.
Yeah.
There's this. Like, I don't have a backup. I don't have a fallback. I don't have another like thing I can go back to. It's like I just want to make movies. So
would you say it's safe to say that you saw your own potential?
I did. I saw my
Yeah.
own potential, you know, through Scorpiation because I was floating that line. I was that unsure, like insecure nature of where I wanted to, you know, both be the typical 9 to 5 guy that has the stable job that everybody kind of respects, you know, because it goes back to just wanting to be seen,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And,
Yeah.
and a lot of people feel that way where there's like I have a nice house, I have a beautiful car, I have a
Yeah.
great spouse, you know, like whatever it is, it's kind of they just want to be seen by other people.
Right.
Well, I realized through Scorpiation that the only way that I was going to be seen and be successful and fulfill like my life goals
There's a deeper purpose there. Yeah.
was by pursuing the thing that I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
And that, you know, it's a long process, but it gave me the courage to jump from being in between both worlds to just saying, I'm going to do this.
A little bit more than hope, huh?
Yeah. It's a little bit more than, yep.
Yeah, I've actually told Alex all about you, and he just thinks that he needs to meet you. Alex, I think, would really appreciate you. That kid grew so much in the 1 year. Oh my gosh, he's like a foot taller. He's already my size, and he was not that big when we started.
I was talking to Keith yesterday because we were doing some work for Icarian, and I'm talking to Keith, and we were talking about the sound design on Scorpiation, and I said it's always funny to me that because it's like you watch the movie. Mm-hmm. And it's like he has one voice at the beginning of the movie and he has another voice at the end of the movie.
Yep.
And it's not because Keith went and changed his voice. Like it's just
it's that age.
He grew up.
Yeah.
You know, it's like his voice dropped 2 octaves.
Yeah.
Just in the course of finishing the movie. Thankfully, it was the end of the movie that we needed the recording because if it was
that was only 3 weeks.
The Scorpiation gave me the courage that I always knew that I had because I've always wanted to like help kids with like something. But I'm always terrified.
You're helping your inner child at the same time.
Exactly. It's Spielberg made a movie about himself, and he called it a $40 million therapy session.
Yeah, you know? He did.
And so I look at like Figmentation, and I go, I can make my own stuff that I want to make on the side, but then I have the opportunity to go over here and make another kid's life change. If I can have the courage to work with kids and show them like that they can be a superhero, I might achieve 2 things. I might teach a kid that they're a superhero, and I might make a future filmmaker in the process.
Right. Because
there's so many opportunities where a kid can like is making like you're making a movie, you're a trailer or whatever Figmentation evolves into, is that like there's a camera team there's a sound guy, there's all this stuff.
They get to see all of the behind the scenes.
See all
and
the
how
behind
it works.
the scenes.
Yeah.
I think it'd be the coolest thing if for like a shot you're like,
tell me you wouldn't have given your left arm as a 12-year-old kid to
would,
be on a set like that.
Just Scorpiation set I would have loved to be on.
Yeah.
Like as a 12-year-old kid, because I had a webcam.
Mm-hmm.
That was my camera.
Yeah.
I saw these big cameras in Hollywood, and I thought big camera meant like the bigger the camera, the better.
Yeah.
Not true. Not true, by the way. So like I would have given anything to be on Scorpiation and put the kid in the scene. Like not just like they're not just on camera. Like let them go behind the screens.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lose nothing if I hand the camera to the kid and I say, okay, we don't run around with it, but like
this is what we're gonna do with it.
We're gonna sit down and then let the kid run a shot.
Yeah.
You know, like get them part of the process, make them excited.
So the experience of a Figmentation is so much more than just the costume and the acting out the story, but it's all of these different parts of it's a whole experience.
It's a process. You're not giving to the world, a packaged corporate product and saying, okay, here's our nice little like video. on to the next kid.
Right.
It's Disney. You're selling an experience.
It's a whole experience
You know?
for these kids.
On a whole other story for another time, me and all my me and some online friends built Disney World in Minecraft. And you could ride all the rides, play all the shit.
Nice.
And
I'm jealous.
and
I want the world download.
I have it.
Do you really?
I do, yeah.
I love Minecraft.
I will show it to you.
Yeah.
I don't have it here, but I'll show it to you, and we can.
I build castles and giant trees.
We can do a whole nother podcast
Oh, be quiet.
We can do a whole other podcast on just that.
I'm just
stuff.
being a geek.
Yeah, just on being a geek. That is what I like in Scorpiation too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what I like in Figmentation too. Is when a little kid comes in and they see a movie set, and they see the lights and the crew and the cameras and the crew and all the people in the stunt team that worked on like Mandalorian and Marvel movies, like they see all this stuff. It's got to be like the most like cultural shock thing of their life, where they're like, I'm insecure because now I have to perform for all these people. But then on top of that, it's like...
Then we put them in their costume.
But then you put them in their costume, and it's like they're at Disney having a blast. They're having fun. The experience about Figmentation is...
It's childhood.
I weight that more than the final project.
Yeah.
Like, the final product of Scorpiation, I think ultimately was just to finish. But I think everything that made Alex was the experiences that he had on the movie.
I agree.
And I'm saying that without even meeting
yeah. Well, okay, so
having met.
Yeah, no, you're fine. So the experience for Alex being on set was the most impactful part for him, I think too. But finishing the movie and making the movie is to show the community how he sees himself. Because he got to act it all out. He gets to live it. So for him, the impact is the making of the movie. But for his community and the long-term impact is letting them see the movie. Because now they're looking at this kid going, I should have never defined you by your diagnosis. Because you're obviously so much more. So now they're not calling him, that kid that this happened to. They're calling him, you remember that Scorpion superhero kid.
Yeah.
So they see him for his potential now, the way that he sees himself. And so no one's going to hold him back.
This is the ripple effect, right?
Yeah.
My parents have always viewed me as their son that got out of the Navy. Their son who was a sailor who, had his troubles in school. I graduated. I did all the things I was supposed to, and I was actually a pretty good student, albeit my troubles. But I was always I always had a title in my family as like the Navy kid, the troubled one.
They gave you a box.
They gave me a box. Openly deciding after Scorpiation that I was just going to be a filmmaker forever. And there's no plan B. I have watched in just the last months, my parents no longer refer to their coworkers as me as their son who got out of the Navy, as me their son who works at Northrop Grumman, as me their son who worked as a contractor for the Air Force. I don't have these titles anymore.
Right.
I'm now their son that works in movies.
Right.
Which is the only thing that I have ever wanted from them.
Yeah.
They will not say it to my face.
No.
But I have big ears.
Yeah.
And I hear it.
So you gave yourself your title.
Yeah.
And then you would accept nothing less.
Exactly.
And now that's what it's making your life into.
Yeah.
Because you decided you were going to go farther than the way that other people had boxed you in.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
And you feel like Scorpiation did the same thing for Alex.
I can see, having never met him, that it did.
Yeah. Well, you got to watch all the footage. There were 40 hours of footage. There was a lot of footage.
There's a lot of footage. Colin wanted to use all of it, but in the reality of stuff, you can't.
Yeah.
There's so much footage. And what we made, I think, is something really special.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of, and I remind myself constantly of what Jeremy said to myself. Like, it was either the first day of shooting Icarian or the last day. I can't remember what day it was, but Jeremy kind of like, grabbed me by the shoulders or something and looked at me and said, like, look, this was fate. It was all supposed to happen this way.
Mm-hmm. And
being here now, she wasn't wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, she kind of adopted you. Decided that you're one of her extra kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a much bigger family now.
Yeah. We're a few people, aren't we?
I have my like blood family, and then I have my Navy family, and then I have
Yep. Figmentation. And all of us attached.
And then all
to
the
it.
Southern Utah people that came along with it.
Yep. And there's a lot of us. What you want is to tell stories and inspire others to tell stories.
Exactly. You got it. See, you summarize it better than me because you're a better writer than me.
I'm not a better writer than you. You're a Tolkien. I'm a Grisham.
John. And that's why my 12-page script for Icarian became a 30-minute movie.
Yeah. I'm not surprised, actually.
I did not add any. I added one scene. There's one scene in the script.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's one scene in the movie that was not in the script. That's it. Everything else was written.
Yeah.
So I don't know how it ended up as 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Kind of goes to the screenwriters that sit there and say, a page a minute. No. The story's however long it's going to be.
Yeah. It's however long it needs to be. Because it's an expression of art. It's an expression of communication. So whatever you write turns into...
Yeah, Scorpiation could be 7 minutes. Could be. But everything that makes Scorpiation special is 20 minutes.
Wouldn't been as good.
No.
Well, thank you, Charlie, for joining us on the podcast.
You're welcome.
I can't wait to do this again. So, guys, like, subscribe, hit the bell, and join us for more podcasts with all of our casting crew. Thanks.
Thank you.